Snow spins down in a slow, unbroken sheet, swallowing the narrow main street and blurring the false-fronted buildings into pale shapes. A single hitching post juts from the drift, and on it sits Mara Keaton, 18, her boots wet to the ankle, her thin shawl plastered to her shoulders. Her head is bowed, but the curve of her jaw shows the set of someone who refuses to beg. Behind the saloon doors, men laugh, boots thump, coins ring. A voice calls her merchandise gone cold, and another says she's better left to freeze than fed. No one inside bothers to lower their voices. Calder Boone emerges from the white haze, a broad-shouldered shadow resolving into the shape of a man with a grain sack over one shoulder. At 22, he carries the stillness of someone who has worked more years than he has lived. Snow clings to the brim of his hat and the rough collar of his coat, yet his gaze fixes on Mara with a kind of unhurried certainty. The few townsfolk braving the cold glance between them. One mutters about Boone, collecting strays, another smirks. Calder doesn't so much as tilt his head. He steps closer, boots creaking in the snow, and shrugs the heavy coat from his shoulders, dropping it over Mara. The weight makes her flinch, but the heat seeping through the wool stops her from pulling away. "Come on," he says, voice low, roughened by cold and wind. No question, no bargain. She blinks at him, half from the sting of the snow, half from the strangeness of being spoken to without cruelty. He turns toward the mercantile and starts walking. After a beat, she follows, dragging her boots through the drift. Inside Silas Dobbs' store, the air smells of coffee and dry beans. Calder collects sacks of flour, a tin of lamp oil, a coil of rope. Mara hovers near the door, dripping meltwater onto the worn floorboards, trying not to meet the eyes of the customers pretending not to watch. Silas, leaning on the counter, makes a half-smile toward Calder. Storm's thickening. Best get that guest somewhere before she's buried. Calder doesn't respond, just lays down coins with a dull clink. When they step back out, the cold closes around them like a wall. They pass the boarding house. Ruthie Mayfield stands on the porch, broom in hand, giving Mara a look that holds equal parts pity and warning. Calder adjusts his stride to match Mara's, slowing his long legs so she doesn't have to half-run. The wind lifts the edge of her shawl and she clamps it tighter. After a while, she says, "I can work for what you give me." He keeps walking. "Didn't ask you to." The words sit heavy in the space between them. By the time they reach the last building, the snow is knee-high. Calder points toward the dark smear of trees in the distance. Past the cottonwoods. Creek runs behind. Mara's breath is visible in bursts, and she tucks her hands deeper into his coat pockets. The walk is quiet but not hollow. The crunch of snow underfoot becomes its own conversation. The cabin glows faintly ahead, smoke curling from the stovepipe. Calder pushes open the door, the hinge giving a tired groan, and gestures her inside. Heat rolls over her in waves. The room is spare but clean, shelves lined with jars, a sturdy table, boots lined by the hearth. No clutter, no softness except for a quilt folded on the chair. Calder takes her wet boots without asking, sets them near the fire, and lays another log on the flames. The scent of pine resin sharpens the air. She hovers near the threshold, eyes flicking to the door as if someone might still come for her. Calder ladles water into a pot, sets it on the stove, and adds beans from a sack. He moves with the efficiency of a man used to feeding himself. Mara finally steps closer to the fire, her fingers tingling as they thaw. "They left me there for not paying back what I never owed," she says, voice brittle. He stirs the pot once, sets the spoon down. "You don't have to tell me yet." When he serves her, the bowl is warm enough to fog her lashes. She eats slow, as if the meal might vanish mid-bite. Calder sits opposite her, saying nothing, but watching with a kind of quiet inventory, measuring if she's warming, if her hands are steady. At last, he leans back, meeting her eyes. "I'll keep you warm," he says. "You keep me alive." The words hang there, puzzling her until he adds, "Winter gets long. A man can freeze without anyone to talk to. Or worse, go hollow." She doesn't know whether to smile or look away, so she does both. Wind slams against the cabin wall, and the doorframe shivers. Calder stands, takes his rifle from its rack. "Stay here." Boots crunch outside. Mara's breath catches until a knock comes. 3 short raps. Calder cracks the door to find Deputy Hank Redden on the porch, snow caked on his shoulders. "Boone," he says, "town saying that girl owes work or payment. Best hand her over, for it gets ugly." Calder steps out, closing the door behind him. From inside, Mara hears only the wind and the low rumble of his voice. When he returns, snow beads his hair, melting into dark streaks down his face. He sets the rifle aside, closes the door with a finality that tells her the conversation's over. "They bring proof, I'll look at it," he says, "but you stay here until then." Mara studies his face, trying to see if there's some catch. "Why risk trouble?" she asks. He kneels to stoke the fire. "Trouble's part of living. So's deciding who's worth it." Night folds in, the storm muting every sound beyond the walls. Mara helps wash dishes, their fingers brushing once, twice, each time, neither pulls away. Calder drapes the quilt over her shoulders. She notices the stitching is careful, old, the kind of work someone meant to keep. He nods toward the small side room. "Bed's yours." She lingers in the doorway, watching him settle in the chair by the fire, boots stretched toward the warmth, gaze distant. In the dark, wrapped in the quilt, she listens to the steady crack of logs and the faint shift of his weight in the chair. Her eyes close against the glow, the first safe darkness she's felt in months. Calder, still by the fire, glances once toward her door, a small, unreadable curve to his mouth. Outside, snow buries the path they walked. Inside, warmth holds, quiet, unspoken, but real enough to last the night. Which city are you watching our video from? Please leave a comment. Please subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you.